Hi, everybody. I'm Sarah, your Christian forgiveness coach, and you're watching Forgive Everyone for Everything Every Day, Right Away. And this episode is called Story versus Fact. So, I want to give you a fun way of looking at some of the mind drama that we create in our head. So, everybody does this, and I'm definitely not exempt. It's one of those things that our brains just like to do when we're not supervising it. I like to think of our brains as like a toddler, like running around with a knife. If you don't supervise that, a lot of trouble can ensue, right? So that's what happens when we don't separate story from fact and we let our brain kind of run amok and create all of this mind drama around any given situation. So there's the facts, right? And the facts are like provable, in a court of law, everybody's going to agree on them. They are things like, the weather, the temperature, they're your past. They're things that you can't change. Other people, things they do and say, just the facts. Everyone's going to agree. Okay. Story is what we make it mean in our mind. Everything else is a story. So a lot of times when you're telling somebody your story, it's really fascinating to look at what you're saying or what you're thinking and separate out the actual facts versus your story and opinion and experience about it. So I have a great example for you. I was out walking my dog one day and I was messing with my phone and trying to get my Bluetooth headphones hooked up and trying to hold the leash and somehow I pushed a button that put my phone in some sort of crazy weird emergency mode where now all of a sudden nothing worked. It wouldn't do Face ID. I couldn't put in my passcode. It was really messed up. And so, at first it was just kind of annoying and I'm, walking along, just kind of trying to figure it out. And eventually the phone just called 911 all on its own, or I must have pushed something to make it call 911. I couldn't get it to stop calling 911. So that happened. And then it notified me that it notified my emergency contacts. So three people in my family got notified that I had called 911. I immediately got a phone call. I could see the call coming through, but I had no way to answer it. I immediately got a phone call from my children's dad. And so the emergency notification went out to my husband, my kid's dad, and my aunt. So I immediately got text from my aunt, a phone call from my kid's dad, and nothing from my husband. So as I'm trying to figure this out, somehow, I don't know how it happened, I was able to text my daughter. Like she had texted me like, "Hey, dad's trying to call you. He said you called 911, all this." And somehow, I don't know what I did. It was like a weird double tapping thing. Had to double tap in order to do stuff, but it was super tricky to figure out. So somehow I was able to double tap and let her know, like, no, my phone's really messed up. I'm fine. So everything was fine. But here's what I started to do in my mind. I was like, huh, everybody else checked to see if I was okay, except for my husband. And I started to get like really mad about it. And I'm walking the dog for like 45 minutes to an hour. And this whole time, I can hear texts coming through. I can hear dings, and everybody has their own sound, so I know who it is. So I heard my aunt, and when was able to contact my daughter, I told her to let her know that I was okay. I even told her to let my husband know that I was okay. Still nothing. His sound never came through. And I was like, oh, what a jerk. In my head, I created this whole story in my head, which logically, of course, if he had gotten the notification, surely he would have tried to contact me. He would have called my kids, to see if they knew what was going on. But oh no, my unsupervised brain went down that rabbit hole of he doesn't care, he's, not concerned about my well being, the whole 9 yards. Crazy, right? So then, of course, I know this kind of logically in my head. But again, I was just not really supervising my brain and just kind of letting it run around with that knife, right? So I get home and I had to just go through this whole thing where I had to reset my phone, plug it in. It took like 9 hours. And then my husband gets home and I asked him, like, what's up? Did you get the notification that I had, called 911? He's like, no, no idea. He had no idea. He's like, I didn't get anything. I have no idea what you're talking about. So this whole time, for hours, I tormented myself with my own mind drama of how I was creating this story in my head about how my husband didn't care about me because he didn't check on me when my phone accidentally called 911. So, when I was able to step back from that and just separate the facts from my whole story about it, then you can see how I created that for myself. And you can do this with anything that you're struggling with and that you're upset about. Separate the story from the facts. Like what I recommend is just do a thought download on it. Just write on a piece of paper everything that you're upset about. All your story about it, all the that, you don't have to separate them out yet. Just get everything out of your brain and down on paper. This is what I had done that day before he got home. And then look at it and look at, okay, what is actually true here? Now, there's going to be some things in there that feel very true, but they're not, unless every single solitary person in a court of law, proven, would agree on it, then it's a story. It's just your thought about it. So separate out the facts, put those on one piece of paper. Probably not going to be a whole lot, especially if it's pretty dramatic like mine. And then just look at those facts. And then take a look about what you're making them all mean, like your whole story about it. And the great thing about your story about it, it's all entirely optional. Everything that I took those facts about the day my phone went haywire, everything about my story about it was optional. Even if my husband had received the notification and not contacted me, my story, that's just a fact. My story about it was all of my mind drama. So play around with that. If you're struggling in a relationship or with an event, try this exercise. Try just getting it all out of your head, write it down, and then separating out the story versus the fact. And then see if that helps you gain a new perspective and ease some of your suffering. So have fun with that exercise. Approach it with love and compassion and curiosity. Okay? Talk next time.